Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Charts with Dan. I am back with a full complement of charts this week. It was a little touch and go. At one point, I was told I was going to lose everything on my computer as it was in for repair last week if you were watching the show. It turns out they were able to fix what needed to be fixed. I kept all my data, so we are back with a full complement of charts and then some to look at the box office this past weekend. We're talking about Free Guy, which had the best hold of the summer. Of course, we're going to talk about that. Those are just my kinds of numbers. We're also going to talk about Reminiscence, a big $60, $70 million Hugh Jackman movie that almost debuted outside of the top 10. What role did HBO Max play in that, if any? Lots of things to break down. Let's look at the top 5 for this past weekend. And number 1 at the box office yet again was Free Guy in its second week with $18.5 million. We talked about last week that Free Guy had overperformed what was expected of it in its opening weekend. The audience response had been largely positive, all of the exit reviews, etc. And that this weekend would be a really good indication of what this movie is going to look like going forward. And what we saw was a great hold. 35% was the drop-off. We have not seen a hold that good all summer. As a matter of fact, these are the drop-offs in week 2 by percentage of movies that open number 1 this summer. You can see of the number 1 openers, Free Guy by far had the best hold from week 1 to week 2 with 35%. The next lowest and the only one under 50% was Spiral, which did not have a big opening. That was early in the summer. Then you see the more standard drop-offs from Jungle Cruise and Wrath of Man, The Conjuring 3, The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, Old, A Quiet Place Part 2, between the 50 to 60% range, and then the steeper drop-offs of F9 and Black Widow. Those both had fairly large openings, 67 and 68%. Space Jam: A New Legacy at 69%, and then the biggest drop-off by a number 1 opener, a movie that opened just a couple weeks ago, The Suicide Squad, with 71%, a movie that was on HBO Max day and date as well. So you can see that Free Guy really did hold incredibly well, and I think this is a testament to a few things. Again, much like when we talk about the failure of different movies, and you can't attribute it to just one thing, I don't think you can attribute the success of Free Guy to just one thing. I think it's a combination of things. Number 1, it's available exclusively in theaters. That's the only place that you can go see it. I'm sure that's part of the reason why this movie did as well in its second weekend. Fox/Disney announced today that this is going to be a 45-day theatrical window, so it's going to be available on home media starting in about a month, but it still has a month left in theaters to run unquestioned, really. Nowhere else to go see it but in theaters. That's part of it. The other thing being, it was a movie that people enjoyed. It was just a good movie. People liked it. Even a movie like The Suicide Squad, which I really liked, had mixed word of mouth coming out. You saw a bigger drop. So I think it's a combination of it's available only in theaters and it's actually a movie that people like. And when you look at the movies that have been up this summer, there haven't been a whole lot that were just kind of big crowd favorites across the board. A Quiet Place Part 2 generally got good reviews. That one did well. F9, I think, pleased a lot of the Fast and Furious fans. That one did pretty well. But you had mixed word of mouth on a lot of other movies, and I think that's a big reason why we saw some of those drops that we saw. But Free Guy is holding up very well. If we're looking at the numbers on a day-by-day basis, right now it's about $6 to $7 million off of the pace of Jungle Cruise, where Jungle Cruise was 10 days into its release. But keep in mind that Jungle Cruise debuted higher, meaning with more money, about $10 million more money than Free Guy did. And it dropped more in its second weekend, as we just saw. So I think it's very possible, if Free Guy can keep this kind of momentum, that it will surpass Jungle Cruise ultimately at the domestic box office, and that we could also see it broach that $100 million domestic mark, which Jungle Cruise is getting very close to right now. So really nothing but good news for Free Guy this weekend when we're looking at the box office. Let's look at the rest of the top 5. Paw Patrol the movie, $13.1 million in second place. This is another day and date release, meaning this was available also on Paramount Plus, formerly CBS All Access, which is the Viacom streaming service. But a lot of people, I'm sure particularly young audiences, going out to see Paw Patrol the movie. And I think this is more evidence that even for a movie that is available on a streaming service, and Paramount Plus isn't exactly Disney Plus. It's not even really HBO Max. It's not one of the more popular streaming streaming services, but it was available to watch at home. It wasn't an extra charge. You just had to subscribe to the service to watch it. There are some movies that will draw an audience, and particularly we've seen this, family films have been doing well. Paw Patrol brings out $13.1 million. We'll look at the drop on that movie next week to see if that was a big surge in opening week enthusiasm, or if this is another one that's going to have good legs at the box office. Jungle Cruise in third place in its fourth week with $6.3 million. Don't Breathe 2 in its second week drops to number 4 with $5 million, and Respect in its second week is at number 5 with $3.7 million, both movies that opened last week. The Suicide Squad, after just 2 weeks in the top 5, has dropped out of the top 5. It was number 6 this past weekend. But another movie that I wanted to talk about is another Warner movie that you may not even have noticed came out, although it feels like I've seen the trailer for this movie every time I've gone to the movies for the last year. It was a movie called Reminiscence, which came out this past Friday. First of all, terrible title. I hate the title of this movie. I think I'm not going to say that's the reason it didn't do well. I just think that reminiscence is a nonsense word. But this was a movie that cost between $60 and $70 million. It came out this past weekend. It was available day and date on HBO Max. It grossed less than $2 million at the box office, and we are talking about, A-list star. You have Hugh Jackman, you have Rebecca Ferguson also in this film. So, these are two names that have been in big films recently. You have a talented supporting cast, and yet barely cracking the top 10, $2 million. That is a really bad showing. And we've seen movies that were available on streaming services elsewhere this summer that have done far better than this. The other thing being, Reminiscence did not appear to also be a particularly popular title on the HBO Max streaming service. We talked about Samba TV. This is not a total viewer number because they can only measure certain devices. But when you can kind of comparatively look at numbers as we get more and more movies. Looking at the numbers reported for Reminiscence, these are the HBO Max first weekend viewership numbers from 2020, basically starting back at Wonder Woman 1984 to 2021. As you can see, Mortal Kombat did the best on its opening weekend, 3.8 million views per Samba TV. Godzilla vs. Kong, second most, although one asterisk there. That was the first 5 days, not the first 3 days. And then you see the Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Zack Snyder's Justice League is in there with 1.8 million viewers. The Conjuring 3, The Little Things, Those Who Wish Me Dead, Tom and Jerry. Reminiscence is the third lowest viewed, less than 1 million views on HBO Max, at least per Samba TV's estimates this past weekend. That tops only In the Heights, which had a much higher box office opening than Reminiscence, and Judas and the Black Messiah, which was an awards season movie. Again, I think opened around the same as Reminiscence. It was also way earlier in the year. We were far less into the reopening of theaters at that time. So it's not like the streaming presence on Reminiscence took a huge bite out of that box office. If we had seen 1.3 or 1.4 million viewers that were watching it, we could say oh, well, it looked like that was a popular film. It's just that people chose to watch it at home. No, not so much. I think that this was a non-starter, no matter how you were going to slice it, even if these were normal times. And it's a combination of things. I think it's number one. You have, again, a title that doesn't really tell you anything about the movie. I don't know if the marketing really distinguished it from anything else that was coming out. It looked a little derivative of Inception and Tenet. It looked like it was kind of trying to fit into that Nolan verse. And also, and I watched Reminiscence over the weekend, it's just not a particularly great movie. I didn't think it was a terrible movie, but you're not going to really build any buzz around it. I doubt that there were that many people that saw Reminiscence and breathlessly told their friends that they had to go check it out. So we have just kind of a dud all around with this, and we've seen this with Warner Brothers in particular. We talk about their franchise films, but even outside of that, they've had some trouble in the last few years launching movies. Reminiscence is another one. The economy of it with HBO Max, I don't know how it works, but certainly not going to be making any money at the box office. I did want to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here because we were talking about the overall streaming numbers and HBO Max. We're getting toward the end of the summer. The end of this year is going to be the end of this grand HBO Max day and date streaming experiment. I wanted to check out the success that HBO Max's films have had on their opening weekends versus other streaming services and the movies they've debuted. And there was kind of some interesting numbers. These are the opening weekend numbers for films that were reported to have had over 1 million views by Samba TV, again, which is really the best way right now for us to get estimates. So these aren't everybody that watched, but we can at least kind of try to comparatively look at these numbers, at least from what Samba TV is reporting. These are the opening weekend streaming viewership numbers for movies that got over 1 million views. Again, going back to pretty much Wonder Woman 1984 back in December. And still, Mortal Kombat, Godzilla vs. Kong, and The Suicide Squad were the most popular so far day and date films on their opening weekends. The only streamers that have really been able to approach the viewership numbers of HBO Max when it comes to movies are Amazon and Disney Plus. You see the Tomorrow War and Soul, the first two yellow columns there, both drew around 2.4 million viewers in their opening weekend. Without Remorse, not too far behind with 2.3 million viewers. Now, those are, keep in mind, streaming exclusives. Tomorrow War, Soul, Without Remorse were not showing at theaters. All of HBO's movies were also showing in theaters. But it's pretty impressive that they are putting up the kinds of numbers that you have with the big streamers with movies that are also available in theaters. Wonder Woman 1984 drew about as many viewers as Without Remorse. And then you have all HBO Max movies. Black Widow from Disney, which of course had the biggest debut that we've seen post-pandemic, but was also available for the Premiere Plus level with that extra surcharge, is the only other film that's cracked 1 million viewers when you look at the numbers from Samba TV. It'll be interesting to look at these numbers next year when this day and date thing with HBO Max ends, when they go to the 45-day theatrical window, and to see, does HBO Max maintain their dominance for the movies that they're putting on their streaming services? Or is this a window that's really open to them this year? Because that could be a good indicator of how long this surge is. You know, this was a big push to get people to subscribe to their service. Will that continue, or are you going to see a lot of people fall off of HBO Max? Are you going to see the fact that maybe Amazon's original movies are the ones that people are watching? Maybe it's more Disney Plus stuff, etc. This is going to be, you know, this is kind of stage one of the post-pandemic streaming wars. Stage two really starts next year because we get into the 45-day window. We're going to have a much clearer line, I think, that's delineating theatrical releases versus streaming-only releases. A lot of very interesting numbers to look at, both in 2021 and beyond. It's a good thing that I run a show about charts, because that's what I like to do. I like to look at the numbers. Speaking of numbers, let's look at some other numbers from this past weekend at the box office. The top movie per theater was a documentary called On Broadway. It was in just one theater, not surprisingly, in New York City. It drew $7,854 in that one theater. A documentary just about the history of Broadway, etc. The Broadway itself is getting ready to come back, and there's really a lot of hype around the return of that community. It's a great community. I love Broadway shows. I try to catch one whenever I'm in New York, so not very surprising that that movie was drawing a big crowd in its one theater in New York. Looking at the top 5 limited release, so these are movies that are playing in 1,000 theaters or less, not including movies that were at one time in wider release that have had their theater counts reduced. Raging Fire, we're going to see this again as we have the last few weeks in the international picture, but is the top grossing movie at the limited release box office with $49,000. It's a very quiet week at the limited release box office. We really didn't see a whole lot break through as we have for the past several weeks. At number 2, Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain in its 6th week. It's only in a handful of theaters, but it's still bringing people in with $44,000. Flag Day's in 24 theaters. This was its opening week. This stars Dylan Penn, who is Sean Penn's daughter, as well as Sean Penn. And it's funny, if you look at that poster, it says from the director of Into the Wild. That would also be Sean Penn. I don't know why you wouldn't just say from director Sean Penn, but, I'm not in charge of marketing. That didn't draw a whole lot of folks in 24 theaters with almost 43,000 in its debut week. Demonic, which is a new film by Neil Blomkamp, in 85 theaters only drew $40,000. That's a surprising fall for him. You would think the name alone would draw a little bit more business, but it did not. Pig is in its 6th week of release. It is in 61 theaters, but still draws $35,000. We're going to see Pig as well later on when we look at the streaming charts. So a very quiet weekend for the limited release box office. I think part of it is that normally that's an older crowd, and they may be a little bit more reticent to return to theaters than perhaps some of the younger folks out there that are going to see Paw Patrol and Free Guy, etc. Not that old folks can't enjoy Free Guy as well. I think they may. Who knows? Let's look at this weekend internationally. At number 1 is Free Guy with $17.1 million. These are all the markets outside of the United States and Canada. At number 2 is Raging Fire with another $13.2 million. Paw Patrol the movie with $12.8 million. The Suicide Squad at number 4 with $8.2 $38.7 million. And then The Boss Baby Family Business opening in some more international markets with $8.3 million. I love that poster. That should have been, why did we get that creepy baby poster? This is a much better poster for The Boss Baby Family Business. I hate that other one. That one haunts my nightmares. So when we take the international box office and we add the domestic box office, we get the worldwide box office, and Free Guy is number one there as well with $35.6 million. Paw Patrol the movie banks $25.9 million. Raging Fire is at number 3 with the international money and the little bit that it made here domestically with $13.3 million. The Suicide Squad remains at number 4, and then Jungle Cruise goes up to number 5 with $10.4 million. We are coming to the end of the summer movie season, just a couple more weeks, really, literally, before we're going to call a wrap on summer 2021 at the box office. It has been a very different summer than even I expected. Let's look at what's going on the summer 2021 chart. The top 3 stays the same. Black Widow is at number 1, F9 at 2, and A Quiet Place Part 2 at 3. I talked about Jungle Cruise and the fact that it is approaching that $100 million mark. It's now less than $8 million away. It jumps over Cruella to become the number 4 movie of the summer. Cruella is at number 5 now. Space Jam: A New Legacy and The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It stay at 6 and 7. But there you see Free Guy entering the chart at number 8 with $58.5 million. It is going to have some serious upward mobility as we go into the next couple weeks. The Boss Baby Family Business drops down 1 spot. The Suicide Squad enters the chart at number 10. We'll see. I mean, it's going to have to make up some real ground to survive. Definitely Shang-Chi, which comes out in a couple weeks, and perhaps even Candyman. So it's going to have to really have some staying power, which it has not had thus far, to even stay in the overall summer top 10. And then dropping out of the top 10, The Forever Purge and Old, which I think had just entered the top 10 last week, but we knew that was going to happen. Looking at the summer weekend tracker, we've been keeping track of this all summer. We had to take the week off last week while I had my computer in the shop, but more of the same, really. We saw that this week kind of followed the pattern of previous summers, but it still is not even close to the overall total, at least as far as the top 5 films domestically that we have seen in previous years. Shang-Chi is really going to be the movie that I think we're going to have a real shot, because Labor Day weekend traditionally is not a huge box office weekend. That could be the weekend where we see that number pop up over previous years. If you look at the very bottom, that gray line, which is the 2020 box office, it has ever so slightly the littlest, just little boop. That is the weekend last year where Unhinged came out, where we got our first quote-unquote nationwide release, although there were not a whole lot of theaters open. But that's why that little gray line blips up just the tiniest little bit, because this time last year was when we were just beginning to explore the option of bringing movies back out into theaters. This is another thing that we didn't do last week, but that's been very interesting. This is the highest earning stars of summer 2021 domestically, and we've had some changes. Free Guy really shook up this picture. Taika Waititi enters the picture because he is in both the Suicide Squad and Free Guy, so he is now the 10th highest earning star of the summer domestically. Lil Rel Howery, who is in both Free Guy and Space Jam: A New Legacy, is now the 9th highest grossing star of the summer. Now, some people may say this is a technicality, but these are credited roles. Dwayne Johnson is credited with a cameo in Free Guy, although I have to go back and look because I think it's mostly voice stuff. But if it was uncredited, it wouldn't count, but it is credited. So he is now the 8th highest earning star of the summer with Free Guy and Jungle Cruise. The cast of A Quiet Place Part 2 holding their own there at number 7. The cast of F9 at number 6. The cast of Black Widow at number 5. John Krasinski also credited with a small role in Free Guy. So his box office on A Quiet Place Part 2 and Free Guy takes him up to number 4. Michael Rooker and John Cena, by virtue of both being in F9 and the Suicide Squad, remain tied at numbers 2 and 3. And then Emily Blunt, for now, remains the queen of the summer box office. Jungle Cruise and A Quiet Place Part 2, they have both eclipsed $250 million combined at the summer box office, so she remains the highest earning star of summer 2021. I know a lot of people are going to want to put an asterisk on that, but I can't say that some credited roles don't count and some do. They may be small roles, but they are still roles. Hugh Jackman, not on that list because Reminiscence didn't do so great. Let's take a look at my predictions for summer 2021. Right now, I still only have one movie in the red, although I suspect that my number 2 movie, I will have guessed 2 of the top 5 wrong, which is pretty sad. But as of now, my final 2 films are the final 2 biggest releases of the summer. Candyman, which comes out this upcoming week, and then Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is coming out in 2 weeks over Labor Day weekend. So we still have some time to look at this chart, but I think this is probably the best it's going to look for quite a while. Maybe I'll get 7 or 8, maybe fewer. We'll have to see how it all shakes out as we get to the end of the summer. Looking out beyond the summer and looking at 2021 overall domestically, Free Guy enters this chart as well. It is now the 9th highest grossing film domestically of 2021. There you see with $58.5 million. Not too much changes. Jungle Cruise jumps up to number 5. Cruella drops down 1 to number 6. Free Guy drops The Boss Baby Family Business down 1 spot to number 10. And that drops Raya and the Last Dragon out of the 2021 domestic top 10. When we look at the worldwide box office for 2021, the top 5 don't change. Hi Mom, Detective Chinatown 3. F9, however, will soon be. Some people track box office differently. Some people have already made this jump for F9. The numbers that I'm looking at, it has not quite made that jump, but it will soon be the second highest grossing film of 2021. It will surpass $700 million worldwide. It has been just banking money all summer. I was a doubter of this film when it came out based on its opening weekends. That was incorrect because the audience around the world has shown that they are still on board the Fast and Furious franchise. It will be the number 2 highest grossing film of 2021 by next week. Godzilla vs. Kong is at 4, Black Widow at 5, A Quiet Place Part 2 and Cruella at 6 and 7. Chinese Doctors moves up 1 place to number 8. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It drops down 1 place to number 9. And Cliff Walker stays at number 10. A few other movies that are going to be vying to nip at the heels of this 2021 worldwide box office chart. One movie that doesn't seem like it's going to make a big splash internationally, though, is Luca, no pun intended. Remember last week I'd mentioned that it had been given a Chinese release date. It was released in China this past Friday on August 20th. It debuted with about $5 million, which is pretty low. I mean, Pixar movies have been a little hit or miss in China, but certainly not that low. The big question there, piracy. Did piracy play a part in Luca not doing very well in China? It got good scores reportedly from people that did go out and see the film. So is it possible that this availability on Disney Plus drove down considerably the number of people in China because there was a high quality version of that movie available? By the way, this is a question not just for Chinese audiences, but I think also for audiences everywhere. We may have a better idea after this weekend because Luca was the first American film in a few months to get a Chinese release date this past Friday. Free Guy will be released in China on this Friday, the 27th. So if Free Guy does well, then perhaps we'll have a better idea of if the Chinese audience does have a desire kind of pent up for these American films, or if, they're really still just kind of focused on the Chinese movies that are in the marketplace. So we'll be keeping an eye on the Chinese numbers for Free Guy. Deadpool was not a big movie there. The first one didn't even get a release in China. I think the second one got not a huge release. So the question being, does Ryan Reynolds have a lot of clout in China? Can he pull in those numbers? We will watch and see. Still no word on a lot of other releases, but the fact that we've gotten 2 American releases dated in the last week and a half or so in Luca and Free Guy, if you're Jungle Cruise, Space Jam, Black Widow, etc. Shang-Chi also still waiting for a date. You have to be hoping that you're going to get cleared very soon to be shown in China. Let's turn to the top 10 movies over the last 365 days domestically, and we've been watching for several weeks now Tenet, and the fact that it has been very close to being on the chart for 1 full year for joining what I would call the 365-day club, but that it might fall just short. Well, it turns out that Tenet is going to fall 10 days short of being on the domestic high grosser list for 365 full days because it has been knocked out by Free Guy. Tenet is dropped off the list after 355 days. So close. That leaves only one movie from 2020 left on the chart, which is The Croods: A New Age. It's going to be kicked off of this chart very soon, which means that really this top 10 365-day chart is going to be very redundant because it's just going to be the top 10 movies from 2021. So I don't know if you're going to really see this chart too much, this exact chart, for a while because I don't want to just repeat the same top 10 chart that we've already seen. But I know that a lot of people that I've talked to and that I've seen down in the comments have said that they enjoy the previous 365-day chart. So there is one that we're going to keep going unless this one becomes redundant as well. I had not done one worldwide because the question is, well, movies come out on different days in different markets. How do you do it? I decided to do a previous 365 days chart for the highest worldwide gross, and it's based off of the date that it opened in its first market. So let's look at the 10 highest grossing films in the past 365 days worldwide. Hi Mom and Detective Chinatown 3 and F9 remain the top 3, but there you see at number 4, Demon Slayer the movie, which came out last October in Japan, is the 4th highest grossing film worldwide over the past 365 days. It tops Godzilla vs. Kong at number 5. My People, My Homeland, which is a Chinese film from last year, is at number 6, followed by Black Widow. If it's any consolation, Tenet is going to make the 365-day club worldwide. I think I'm going to keep the official 365 club for domestic releases, but a small second prize for Tenet. It stays on the chart worldwide for a full year because it's just a few days short at $361 million. And then at numbers 9 and 10, A Quiet Place Part 2 and Cruella. Next week, there will be at least one new movie on this chart because Tenet will rotate out after having been on the chart for a full year. It's hard to believe, though, that we are a year out from the worldwide rollout of Tenet. I remember a lot of markets getting Tenet before we got it here in the United States, and people saying like, oh, how am I going to do it? I got to avoid spoilers. I can't read reviews. It somehow seems a lot longer than a year ago, but it was really just 1 year ago. Crazy times. Before we look at the streaming charts, let's take a look back at a chart from weekends past. This weekend, we're looking at August 21st to the 23rd, 1998, the debut of Blade, starring Wesley Snipes. Really, I think the real beginning of the modern Marvel movie world, or at least you could say phase 1 before they transitioned over to the MCU. That was a number 1 film at $17 million. At number 2, Saving Private Ryan in its 5th week with just over $10 million. There's Something About Mary continued a great summer run back in 98 in its 6th week at number 3. How Stella Got Her Groove Back in its 2nd week was at number 4. And the Nick Cage, Brian De Palma film Snake Eyes in week 3 at number 5. Before we go, as always, I like to check out what people are watching at home, and as it turns out, it's a lot of what people are still watching in theaters as well. As we look at Amazon, the number 1 movie right now is Stillwater, which is still in theaters, but also available on premium video on demand. It's the new number 1 on Amazon, followed by F9. The Green Knight, also now available premium video on demand. Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, also available now premium video on demand. The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, my least favorite title of the summer, although Reminiscence might beat it out. Now at number 5, the rental window open on that film. At number 6, the HD premium video on demand of Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, followed by Wrath of Man, A Quiet Place Part 2, Black Widow, and The Forever Purge. So really what you have here is the summer box office. It's a very similar picture when you turn to what people are renting over on iTunes. At number 1, The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, as I mentioned, the rental window now open for that. The premium video on demand of Stillwater at number 2, The Green Knight at number 3, Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, which is available for both purchase and premium video on demand, is at number 4. The Courier, which came out earlier this year, a 99-cent rental, so it's at number 5 this week. A Quiet Place Part 2, F9, Black Widow, Wrath of Man, and Pig at numbers 6 through 10. So again, all movies that hit theaters in 2021, some of them less than a month ago. It is a new world out there for how people are watching movies. When we look over on Netflix, the number 1 most watched thing on the service here in the United States is the Netflix original movie Sweet Girl, followed by the Loud House movie at number 2. Vivo and Outer Banks are at numbers 3 and 4. Manifest, which has been on and off the chart all summer, comes back at number 5. All American is at number 6. The Chair, the Netflix original series, is at number 7. As decreed on the stone tablets from the sun god Ra, Cocomelon remains on the Netflix top 10 at number 8. It's been on for about 6 months now, so I don't think that's ever going to leave while the world remains spinning in the current direction in which it's spinning. At number 9, the Netflix original series Bake Squad, and at number 10, the Netflix original series Grace and Frankie. And when you break down Netflix by just the movies that people are watching, Sweet Girl, The Loud House, and Vivo are at numbers 1 through 3. The Kissing Booth 3 and Beckett are at numbers 4 and 5. And Black Island is at number 6. So you have Netflix original movies at numbers 1 through 6. Major Pain at number 7. A new installment of Memories of a Murder is in at number 8. The Vault is at number 9. And Walk of Shame is at number 10. And that wraps it up for this week on Charts with Dan. Theatrically, coming up, we have Candyman, which hits theaters this Friday. I'm looking forward to that, so you can probably look for a review of Candyman here on the channel later this week. I've also been catching up on some streaming movies, some of the ones that are also in theaters, also some ones that are streaming exclusive films, and you can look for a review of a few of those coming up later this week. I'm also, so people have asked about What If. I did a non-spoiler review on the first 3 episodes of What If, and with all the computer stuff, etc., and a few other things I've had going on, I haven't done the episode-by-episode reviews, but I'm still looking at potentially doing some for the episodes weekly, especially as ones come out that I haven't seen, so you could be seeing some What If reviews. Lots of stuff coming up here on the channel, lots of stuff to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see even more of what I'm up to, you can check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/Dan Murrell. I want to particularly thank some of these patrons. These are some of my producer level patrons. It's the highest level that I have over on Patreon, and we do a lot of great stuff. They help me with my Schmodown study sessions. We do watch-alongs. Everyone gets a commentary every month, breakdowns of previous Schmodown matches that I've done. A lot of really fun stuff. If you want to see what I'm doing, I'd love to have you over on Patreon. But most especially, thank you for watching me here on the channel. I will see you next week. Until then, stay safe, and thanks for watching.